Okay, welcome back to my live stream of Errant Kingdom. Um, Last week we did Chapter 1 of the Ambassador route. This week we're doing Chapter 1 of the Night route. I did re-record the prologue for the Night route. That will go up next week. The Ambassador, this coming Saturday, the Ambassador prologue went up this past Saturday. So won't have to worry about that anymore because I got things sorted out. So last we left off with the Knight. They had investigated the castle for any signs of an assassin lurking around. The only person they found was Reagan, who technically is an assassin, but not the one they were looking for. He was not the one who went after the king and queen. So as you can see, I changed the name of my Knight in case, well, you're not going to see that until the Saturday. But I changed my Knight's name because I was having trouble remembering the correct pronunciation for the name I picked before. And rather than keep butchering it, I switched to a name that I can remember the pronunciation. So the Knight is Ehab. I know, it sounds a lot like Ahab, but different. I wrote it down. There it is. I have a lot of stuff on my desk for me. So, where is it? No. There it is. Alright, so the name Ehab, or Ehab, so as long as I get that part right, it means gift. And I had been having trouble deciding who they were going to romance because they still. And I finally settled on their romance. Still going to flirt with everyone because I can, but I know who they're going to romance ahead of time. So, let's get this show on the road. Yeah, so after looking for an assassin all over the castle, didn't find anyone. The next day, when they go into town, they started poking around and ran into Rue and Eric. Rue distracted them before they could question Eric. And by the time they finished talking, they hadn't finished talking with Rue when they had to return to the castle to escort the nobles to the square for a speech made by the Vithrus ambassador, which we know in this case is Rahim. Though obviously in the Night route, a name is not specified for the ambassador or anything. It's just some generic ambassador, really. But in my head, it's Rahim. So then after the speech, the Knight went to return to continue patrolling and ran into Eric and talked to him. And that's where we ended the chapter. So this is now chapter 1. Last night might have been the first restful sleep I've had in a long while. Or maybe it's more appropriate to say it was a coma, because I didn't even stir, not an inch. When the first announcement of morning drills were called, I had to be rolled out of bed like a dead body, according to my squire. The poor lad looked mortified. I'm lucky I don't have to do that. At least it's my day off, I suppose. Morning drills are mandatory, however, day off or not, and the endless cycle of conditioning our battles for battles to protect the Golden Kingdom continues. This isn't unusual and definitely completely standard in my line of work, but considering that there have been absolutely no skirmishes in my time here, it seems a little excessive. Who's the Knight Commander? Vivia. It does not seem excessive at all when we keep that in mind. Victorian military is a tight complement, disciplined and orderly, but in some ways Novus feels oppressive, almost as if they expect to fight and prepare in earnest. Or because I just didn't enjoy training for 2 hours right after waking. At the mercy of my squire Maddox, or Mads as he insists, I was at least able to find time for a warm bath. Even though I'm pretty sure I could hear my body creaking in the warm water as I let these weary bones relax, my mind was still restless. All I can think about was how I want to know more. More about what's going on, about this mysterious assassin that had vanished, why Eric's mission was so important, and just this general feeling of something else in the air. Maybe I'm in over my head, and this tapestry of small mysteries is only becoming larger because of my curiosity. No harm in being curious. I urge my thoughts to ease as I'm dressing, and then I hear a light tapping on the door. Tap, tap, tapping on my chamber door. Quoth the raven, nevermore. My liege, come in. As polite as ever, Maddox enters. He holds my armor in his hands with a bright mirror-like polish applied. I blink for a long beat as he approaches, and the sunbeams hit the breastplate just right, so it's glinting relentlessly in my eyes. He pauses, a sheepish smile on his face as he angles it away. My apologies. That's impressive work you've done there. My enemies will never see me coming if I strike by daylight. Maddox chuckles, shifting the metal in his hands awkwardly. I'll take that as a compliment. One of you should become skilled in polishing armor when you've been in the business of being a squire for a while. You've been a squire for some time? Something like that. I'm a bit older than most, late induction and all, but never mind that. Holds up the armor like an offering to change the subject. Shall I? I shake my head and gesture for her to put it down. No patrol today, or any pressing matters really, but still my mind wanders. Before I can stop myself, I ask, Max, can I ask you some questions if that's alright with you? There's a look of confusion and then concern, followed by something that looks like unease. I didn't think he was so easily startled. You're not in trouble, I assure you. Oh, sorry, usually when anyone asks me anything, it's the Knight Commander. The Knight Commander is the only one who asks you questions? His jaw moves a little like a puppet, and Maddox struggles to find his words. That woman put the fear of God in him. Let's just sit, shall we? I pull up my desk chair for him to sit, giving it a firm pat, and seat myself on the edge of my bed. He plops down rather stiffly, looking grateful to be grounded. I wonder how much information I could pull from him. He seems just a tad shy, but if I'm planning he's been employed here for some time, I might be able to glean some knowledge from him. The skilled cage seems to put his patrons, while willful ignorance and airy behavior, at ease. The couriers here have made it a pastime to gossip, and the shrill titters from the ladies sharing rumors are aplenty. Their lips seem to be as loose as their morals, and hopefully Maddox enjoys some harmless eavesdropping. I need to know a little more about the kingdom. I'm a little out of my element, and I want to insist in the investigation. I've done some intel gathering of my own, and it's led me down some interesting paths. However, I need more. Max lights up at this, looking a little more like the young man he is when he smiles. That's admirable, my liege. I'll try to assist you in whatever way I can. I sigh, appreciative to know that I have someone supporting this place, but it might be short-lived after my next question. Tell me more about Novus's underbelly. I know there's an assassin's guild here in its midst, but I need to know where. There's a pause, and my smile ever so slowly melts away. Much like a bird would, his head tilts and he holds my gaze with something akin to incredulity. That's quite the inquiry. You want to find the assassin's guild? To which end? To investigate? Won't they just, assassinate you? Good point. Now it's my turn with the awkward smile or grimace. Well, yes, I have considered that, but if it's an organization, I imagine they have a mind to build a conference. It's possible they might try to kill me, but a parlaying court might produce a more favorable meeting. If you wanted information, you might be better off and more safely be able to ask the Grand Archmage. She has a number of spies under her wings. This revelation is both surprising and not. Lady Olenka has always produced an aura of being readily capable, as well as resourceful. Having eyes and ears in places she cannot reach doesn't seem out of the realm of possibility. A sound choice for someone in her position. Lucian comes to mind as another individual that might be in the same business, but they seem more concerned with being personally in the know rather than employing others to do their snooping. That's true. But even they can't be everywhere. That does sound helpful. However, I have no doubt her hands are already tied with learning all that she can and already has. I do think there's value in finding this place, threat of death or not. It would be optimal not to drag Maja into this business, even if we are all steeped in it. I'm not particularly fond of the idea of word going around about a knight consorting with assassins as the new hot gossip. Max continues to press me with a stare, and I do the very same back. You really want to do this? For the kingdom? Another choice. Now this time we actually have the symbol. In the prologue, we didn't have any symbols to guide our choices. Now, do we say I want to cast this talking for myself, or do I want to make this place safe? I'm playing E-Hub does very much the typical knight, so we'll go with the first one. I do. This may not be my home country, but I do want to see it protected. Countrymen put so much stock into their roots that they remain knights. Just that, rooted. I was handpicked to serve Novus, and while I still grew up in Vitrus, so there's no reason for me to discriminate against the well-being of this land. Okay, I think that's a typo. Well then, I'm at least happy to hear we're short on heroism these days. A chuckle escapes me. Don't call it heroism just yet. I care, but I'd rather not see the world burn. Truly, although I do think it to be heroic, at least in my humble opinion. Maddox smiles, a small reassuring thing. Thanks for the vote of confidence. I'm here to support you, my liege. Heroism, huh? So, are you willing to help me? There's a moment where it looks like he might protest, but instead, he crosses his arms and looks to his lap as if seeking answers. There's a sigh, and he peers up from his red bangs, then nods. I gave my warning, I can't stop you. Well, I could try, but I'd rather not. I've only heard a few scatterings of information, usually bloody misses with the serpent stamped upon the parchment, but it's not too soiled. I know not of where they originate, but here it is somewhere around here. There we go. Yeah, so, that sounds familiar. Bloody misses with the serpent stamped upon it. Didn't our nomad receive something similar? A serpent? How appropriate. No suspicious rundown buildings, no holes in walls, any nonsensical phrases you've heard. He shakes his head with a frown and apology in his eyes. Well, my liege, I imagine secret organizations do make a habit of keeping those things, well, secret. This is true. As much as he's right, and I feel ever so slightly foolish for even asking, they do have a known insignia, which now I think of it seems to ring some bells. Recalling recent events, Sylvia confirmed that our nightly visitor was indeed an assassin, and that she was very familiar with him. That night was a haze, but I do believe I remember seeing some kind of distinctive tattoo on his arm. An organization like any other must carry its brand, just like the Order of Knights carry the sigil of Novus. An order of assassins might brand their people, as with their calling card. I could ask Livia of him, that is, if I fancied the idea of declaring my extracurricular investigations to my commander directly. Which, of course, I don't. Come on! But a certain individual comes to mind. The ambassador. They know of him. Well, an assassin, I mean. Ambassador? You mean Ambassador Veritas? Interesting that Mavs didn't even need you to specify which ambassador. The fact I didn't have to call them by name is telling. It's very likely they know more and are sharing intimate details with him, I assume. He coughs, apologizing for a sudden sore throat. Seems the ambassador makes no secret of their liaisons. Why would they? It's Lucian. Hello. I'll go and do some digging. Thank you for all your help, Mads. Maddox stands just as I do, gripping the breastplate a little more insistently this time. Look at the blush! You blush! Blushing! You're very welcome, but I must at least try to persuade you that you let me put on your armor. Criminal underground searching was not on your itinerary today. A laugh escapes me. It certainly wasn't. Don't worry, I'll cover for you if anyone gets too nosy in your business. Just be safe. I nod a silent promise and wait as he straps on the armor. After a brief conversation with some rather uncouth courtiers, the next leg of my travels leads me to the palace gardens. I find it's not often I stop to enjoy its splendors, appearing almost ancient in decor. It's both wild and refined in its beauty, a crescendo of chirping birds and cicadas relishing in the light of the sun. Vines like creeping fingers winding around aged columns and flowers with a faint glowing halo encircling them, adorning the stonework. I then spied the demon ambassador reclining effortlessly at the lip of an elegant marble bench. They bask in the glow of the morning rays, unperturbed by the unsettled wide berth the other courtiers heaved them. They wouldn't be. Lucian is as much of a marvel at court as they are to look at, ethereal to the point of making everything else around them appear mundane. I approach them at a steady pace, but as though they already know my approach, they look at me and smile. Good morning, fair knight. Good morning to you, ambassador. They wave a finger at me and click their tongue almost fondly. As I've already told your fellow compatriot, you may forgo the formality. I'm not one to rush in titles, nor do I care for self-imposed importance. You understand, I hope. As you wish, Lucian. They nod and want an approval, and lay a hand on the empty seat next to them. Please. It looks pleasant enough, and I nod, obliging to their request. A loud clacking of my armor against the surface breaks some of the serenity. They chuckle, fist at the mouth. Are all of the three knights so dutiful? Do you not take days off? It is my day off, actually. Really? A look of mock surprise crosses their features. Lucian, you... Some issues with coding, apparently. You certainly fooled me. I prefer less rigid clothes on my days of leisure. I do hope you don't boil like a crab under there. You prefer less rigid clothes, period. I'm not wearing this because I enjoy it. Certain activities I had planned deem that I might need it. Oh? Lucian looks intrigued and their brow cocks at me. Though the courtiers seem to avoid them, they all skirt around the area like carrion birds. Likely intrigued that someone is actively engaged with them, I suppose. There were a couple of questions I wanted to ask you about certain individuals, if that's all right with you. Is that so? I see. They unlower their throat and say nothing more, scanning the horizon. I watch them as they look around, not a care in the world, and not bothering to answer my question either. Their gaze travels, and while they do not directly look at them, I can tell they watch the others that stray near in their peripheral. Thinking it might be better to speak elsewhere, I ask, "Can I speak somewhere private?" So those kinds of questions. Of course, let us relocate. Your comfort is paramount. They rise and smile politely. Come, I know a place where we may speak freely. Lucian gestures for me to follow, and I keep a steady pace at their side. The path they guide me down winds away from the main portion of the garden and directly towards yet another dilapidated building. This one looks weather-worn and has been chipped away at by the passage of time, but it's every bit as beautiful as the rest of the garden. It could very well be a chapel, and it's haunting, a chill rolling down my spine as we draw nearer. Lucian approaches the door first and lays a gilded hand upon the cracked wood, gesturing with the other as they urge me to pass through. There's something about the playfulness that lingers at the edge of their poised demeanor that makes me second-guess obliging, but not enough to decline. I need to remind myself of my confidence and the chance I'm taking and why, and so I step forward. Wait a minute, does it look familiar? When I venture through, I fully expect an empty hall, possibly something similar and grown over like the previous area, yet another echo of what once was. I feel something wash over me, a warm sensation that almost doesn't wholly register or wouldn't think to. Familiar pews line the room, and a large oaken table with a map outlining the city stands quite a place in the center. Familiar feeling settles in my gut, the one that's usually present when I report to my knight commander. I turn around to stare at Lucian. You wish to speak to me about private matters? I can practically feel the mischievous glee in their voice when they speak. Not that Lucian was a little audacious, but that was a massive understatement. They are not a little audacious, they are audacious. Why here, of all places, is my superior's command room? They put their fingers together and give a lazy shrug. You wish for privacy, and I led us to the most private place available. I knew for a fact that dearest Livia wouldn't be present, and I know that no one dares poke around in the den of the lioness. It simply seemed the most appropriate. My mouth hangs ajar. Well, there is some logic behind the decision. So, first work for the night. Take me back, I'd rather not risk it. Lucian seems certain, so I'll trust him. I don't mind being with them. Adrenaline pulses relentlessly in my veins, but they continue to look smug. Their heads tip-topped as they lean against Livia's war table as if it were their own. was so lax and confident in this little devious adventure that they led me on that it feels a little thrilling, to be completely honest. I'm not exactly certain of their reputation for disobeying the rules of the palace, but the casual elegance that Lucine exudes and the ease in which they exist is alluring, to say the least. You really enjoy poking around places you shouldn't, At least I can say with very pleasant company. A smile forms on my lips before I can stop it, and Lucien offers me a fanged, wicked grin. Oh, is that so? I think I can hear a gentle rumble deep in their chest, their gaze changing in an inexplicable way, silver eyes keenly focused on me. Something about you told me that you'd appreciate this little adventure. I'm glad to be proven right. With a voice like velvety purr, they stalk around the desk, one cold-tipped claw trailing across the wood grain with every step. They stop in front of me and fold their arms behind their backs, tilting their head with that same sly smile. So, you'll keep me company to make sure I won't do anything more mischievous? You've already proven to have an inclination to do what others shouldn't, so we'll just have to ask my questions here and keep a close eye on you. Please do. Now, ask me your questions, fair knight. I cross my arms and try and think with some clarity. My mind a little hazy with the flirting. It seems like a fool's errand to ask, but I want to know more about the Assassin's Guild. I know you have liaisons with one of them, and I'd like to understand more about their possible involvement. They avert their gaze, tapping a clawed finger to their lips once, twice, and then they look at me again. Doing some private investigations, are we now? I assume it's private anyway, considering you came to me to ask about those lurking in the shadows. Indeed. I would ask Livia directly to give me clearance for the investigation, but taking it upon myself to find a nest of assassins might seem like vigilantism? Yes, more or less. Mads labeled it as something akin to heroism, but Livia would likely see it as idiocy to take such a dangerous task into my own hands. Hell, even I think it is. Do not fret, dear knight. It's with the utmost tact that I will handle your personal exploits. I'm not one to judge. I, too, enjoy a little adventure. You should take some measure of care, though this will be my only warning. Again, I will remind you that Raiden is not your assassin. He has other games to play. Beheading brewers isn't exactly in his repertoire. And the smile graces their lips, and it looks like they're refraining from rolling their eyes. He will incessantly remind you of his skill and his inability to miss. A bother, but he doesn't lie about this. The last that escapes me is a knee-jerk reaction. I remember that cocky was my first impression, but what makes you think he wouldn't? Perhaps he gets a hefty reward for it? You would think that a large sum of money would sway someone that kills for it, but not this one. Something like affection takes over their gaze, and their posture noticeably changes with it. Raiden is skilled enough to find work that could amount to the same esteemed reward if he wished it, but taking the lives of the leaders of the place he lives in is not the kind of chaos he's attracted to. So there is something more to their feelings for Raiden. He's not just a warm body in his bed, their bed. With chaos, there is also order in equal measure. In denying the kingdom of its figureheads that represent it would create much chaos. There is a method to his madness. You mean to say he wouldn't do that because he cares about the state of the kingdom? Oh, it's not that romantic. More along the lines that he cares about the home he lives in. A burning shack is not preferable to a safe shack. Indeed. Obviously, a burning homestead is bad, yes. Again, there's a possibility that Lucien is covering for Raiden, but by all previous accounts, Raiden is not unusual to pass grounds. Livia even accounted for him. It sounds like he's more comfortable with being a nuisance in high-up places than has been for a while. That makes this story more believable, I suppose. Well-trained assassin with some morals, hopefully that bodes well for the rest of his lot. Or does it? That aside, do you think it's possible that he'd answer my questions? Maybe humor them a little? He'll humor you for certain, but how much he'll reveal to you is entirely up to him. So, if you're patient enough to weather his teasing, I can arrange a meeting, and from there you can ask your questions. I greatly appreciate that, if you can make it happen. Lucien places a graceful hand over their heart, adorned with gold necklaces that glitter like their skin. I can, and I will. I'm sure it will be an interesting time for you. He's a complex man, as you will see. Their head nods to the door, a knowing look in their eyes. There she is. I can hear the harbinger's footsteps as clearly as the tolling of bells. That is our signal to leave. Instinctively, my throat clenches, dry and hoarse, my eyes darting to the nearest exit. Lucian chuckles. I assume I must look like a surprised animal stuck in a predator's den. They walk forward and lay a reassuring hand upon my shoulder, pressing the other against the wall. The same familiar warm sensation envelops us as they urge us back through. The wall grazes my back as it gently melts shut, and hairs on the back of my neck stand to attention when I hear the sound of a door creaking open. It's a beautiful scene, but that's to be expected when you look at the surrounding gardens. It's quiet and devoid of life, but the vegetation that inhabits it brings about a different kind of charm. Lucian follows closely behind, and the door closes with an echo that reverberates within these empty halls. You're clearly well practiced with that little trick, I'll give you that. Glad to see my efforts are noticed. The sheer confidence this scene exudes is both reassuring and frightening. Have you any other questions for me? Other than how I should approach a nest of assassins with some tact? Their code of conduct is not something I'm familiar with. Raiden is the top of his class, but he is not the speaker for his organization. His demeanor isn't exactly what it seems on the surface, and doesn't encompass the rest of his comrades. Indeed. I don't think you will meet them, not this day at least. You'll have time to think over and recite your greetings. Part of me deflates and the other is relieved. This armor is heavy, but to know I have this chance feels like shrugging off an invisible sandbag. It's one thing to be well-versed in combat, more than most, but another to walk into a den of killers without knowing how they'll welcome the Knight of the Kingdom. Where should I meet him? Should I find you, or... He will find you, as is part of his profession. More comforting thoughts. Couldn't possibly just be a normal meeting. Of course not. It's Raiden we're talking about here. Alright then. Thank you for the advice and your time. I think I've learned all I can right now, so I'll be on my way. Happy to be of assistance. Tread carefully, Knight Kadir. What an exchange. Maybe someday I'll get used to all the odd happenings in my life. Maybe. Curious, I glance around at the surrounding area. There are no nosy courtiers about, and that is more than a relief. They do love to poke about, but they seem to be wise enough not to get too close from what I can tell. The sun is so high in the sky, and I have no idea when I'll get my meeting with the assassin, or even where. I had a goal in mind when I left my quarters, but that seems to be on hold. I have unexpected free time to fill. Lost in thought and barely able to register a quick flicker of movement in the corner of my eye. It could be just a person off the path tending to the flowers, of course, but the Novian sunshine is too bright for me to clearly make out their barbs, and positive it doesn't look nearly as gaudy as the other denizens, though. They're too far off to be eavesdropping, and when they move out of the sunlight, I think I spot a flash of red hair. My thoughts immediately swing to Rue. Do they frequent the path so freely like our assassins, too? Come to think of it, I don't actually know what Rue does at all. With so much time on my hands, I reason that I might as well say hello, if it doesn't turn out to be them. If it does turn out to be them, there we go. Does. I see no visible path that will lead me to where they currently are, which means there's a possibility of property damage in my wake. I mutter a silent apology to whoever will have to deal with that. I awkwardly shuffle through the plants, but I swear I see them carefully shift aside as I pass. The nature of these gardens getting curiouser and curiouser. Oh, reference Alice in Wonderland. As I follow Maybe Route, the figure moves further away. It's going down a path I hadn't seen before. It's a tight track that snakes around some of the crumbling buildings, descending further down. When I manage to skip through the narrow passageway, I find myself in the town square. That wasn't at all an obvious means of getting here. I assume Rue is not, in fact, supposed to be in the palace. They stop outside of one of the crooked buildings as three excited children scurry towards them. Rue laughs heartily at their exuberance as their tiny hands pull at their cloaks, pulling them this way and that. Rue produces a different bunch of yellow flowers with a flourish from underneath said cloak. Daffodils, I believe. They clearly been unearthed and not just plucked, dirt still dangling from the scraggly roots. All the children eagerly cup their hands, clearly no strangers to the face tricks. and Rue carefully distributes a bloom into each palm. Now I'm entrusting these friends to you. Be very careful taking them back. Understand? Their hearts are being protected by the soil. The children's eyes widen as they look to one another, to their hands, and then back to Rue, all nodding vigorously. Of course Rue is good with kids. They're Rue. When you give them a new home, find a place where they can look to the sun. These little ones love the sun and makes them positively giddy. Don't forget to give them water when their dirt is dry. If you do forget, their hearts will shrivel up and die, so be good to them, all right? Oh, and talk to them, too. They're fantastic listeners. I'm sure they'll love to hear all about your adventures. I know I do. The smile they give the kids is wide enough to flash those 20 teeth, but the children are unperturbed. They rock on their heels, laughing and bouncing, mindful of how they hold their new treasure, and heeding the fae's warnings. They can hear multiple thank yous chorusing over one another. They mentally scatter, bumping shoulders while they run off to wherever they came from. I could feel the warmth in Ruth's gaze as they watched them leave, even from here. They seem fond of you. Those flowers were nice. Do you come to the gardens often? Ruth turns to me and flinches, a hand jokingly and dramatically coming up to shield their eyes. My, you're bright today, a lovely, shining beacon of a night. Saw me, did you? House gardens are home to some of the happiest plants I've seen. It's nice to say hello once in a while. Also, what you said just then sounds awfully a lot like, what did he say? Pick-up line? A pick-me-up line? My brows climbed to my hairline. Did it? Huh? Wasn't my intention to say hello? Or a weak line, but it could be. Like I said, we're gonna flirt with everybody. I might use such a pick-up line. Pick-up line is right, but I didn't mean it that way, so I do like seeing you around. Made an impression on you the other day, huh? You fancy seeing the cute redhead around the palace? I might. I know our first meeting was a little awkward, but I'll certainly never be against seeing you. The coy smile curls their lips, one arm propping up the other so it can hold their face. Rue coos at me. You just repeated yourself, so you are sweet on me. Pardon me if I'm wrong, but you feel like a Leviathan. I hope you're not playing a trick on me. I know how much us fans enjoy our share of games, but I'd be kind of disappointed if you don't actually think I'm cute. I shake my head and smile at them, earnest in my enjoyment. No tricks, only the truth. They beam brightly at me. So what brought you to the gardens? Was it just so you could give the children some flowers? For them and for someone else having a bad day. I always try to bring him something nice when he gets like this. They produce from their cloak yet another bundle of daffodils. These are brighter, their petals bigger. The heads seem to lean gratefully into Rue's touch as they run their fingers over the stems. The gardens are curious, have you noticed? Something about the place feels different. It's not so strange to get magic involved with caring for them. I can't quite put my finger on it. Nowhere else feels quite like it does in the palace. A queer place for sure. Magic doesn't come naturally to me as Rue. But the gardens don't seem to strike me as unusual. Maybe they're able to sense something I'm not. The only strange thing I've heard is about the large spiders that inhabit it, which I hope is only a rumor. Again with the rumor. Yeah, the ambassador referenced it. I need to reference that with the nomad route, but not really. Never mind me. What about you? More important nightly duties today? Something like that. I might know someone, but I have no idea when or even where that will be. So really, I'm doing nothing. Waking up so early didn't work out in my favor. Now I have nothing on my plate, and grogginess is just a way of life. Oh, well, I wouldn't say that. Now you can do whatever strikes your fancy. Optimistic as always. Of course, need to stay sprightly. Novus is all hard walls and even harder looks. It's no fun, really. Rue paints an angry, stoic face, pushing their cheeks together to make their jaw more square, and then pokes out their tongue. I blink once and stutter a laugh. So, if you like, you can tag along and help me cheer up one grumpy baby. You have a child? Rue gapes like a fish, pausing to process my question, and then they erupt into uproarious laughter. They're careful of the flowers they hold, but they clutch their stomach almost comically, hamming it up. Oh my goodness, no, Eric! He is the baby I speak of. Maybe I'm delirious, but Eric? A baby? You go Eric that? I have a slight inkling that it may not be fond of such a nickname. Yeah, I'm assuming Rue calls him that because, one, it annoys him, and two, compared to Rue, he is very young. Because Rue is apparently quite not young themselves. He adores it, you'll see. And maybe you can make nice when you're there. Don't know how your meeting went, but I think you could do with more company. What do you say? I have shrugged and nod my agreement. Sure, why not? Rue claps her hands in delight, and they display their wide, sparkling smile again. Wonderful! I'm sure you'll get along famously. He might grunt a lot, but in time you'll get the good grunt. The good grunt, huh? They nod confidently and begin to wander off the cobbled path that leads into the forest that lingers on the outskirts of town. I don't immediately follow, but I do watch them go, and Rube swiftly notices my absence and turns around, waving to me as if to say, "Come now." I sigh and oblige, catching up with them and matching their long-lived stride. For my sake, I hope Eric is at least awake. The thought of me, at night, stirring him from his slumber, doesn't paint an attractive picture in my mind. Here we go. Yep, here we go. See this so familiar? Rue leads us along a far-off trail to a place nestled deep in a lush woodland. I can't say I'm surprised to find that Eric lives in such a reclusive environment. He does come off as emotionally removed as he is physically removed from everyone around him. Despite that somber thought, the closer we get, I can see some of the charm in his humble abode. We approach a cabin that's shielded under the boughs of some large old trees, a bit weathered but exuding coziness. It's unquestionably warmer in comparison to the cold stone of the castle, at least. Eric making a home nestled away in the bosom of nature, but not straying too far from the castle, makes perfect sense. There's an illusion there that I feel, something that teases how he must feel about his situation. So now I realize I see no lights emerging from the window, and an immediate spike of worry hits me. Maybe I jinxed myself earlier with the thought of finding him sleeping? I could feel dread welling in my gut. Is this a bad time? We didn't come to wake him, right? Rue minds their footing as I step over a gnarled root, pursing their lips. It'll be fine. When he's not drowning in that golden dinky juice, he's fairly active. He insists he keeps himself strong. I'm skeptical, but I hope they're right. Before the dread can wind its stinging fingers any tighter around me, there's a loud crack that rings out intense birds that have been nesting in the trees, flying. It sounds like a tree limb has snapped, but I see no evidence of the sort. I hear it again, but this time the source is closer, near to the cabin. Rue, hearing the same, looks at me with a knowing wink. I hum a tune and pick up their pace, launching into an almost skip. Eric, good morning! I follow their excited bounding around the corner, and the bee that greets me punches me square in the throat. Again, rather familiar, isn't it? We saw this with the ambassador, right? Eric has an axe clutched in his broad palms and is mid-strike, aiming for the neatly placed log that wakes upon a felled stump. He cleaves the blade into the stump instead, quick to yank it free, and throws us both a hard glare. I can't tell at this point if it's better or worse than that we didn't find him still sleeping. His chest heaves, sweat rolling down his body, and beads from his laborious efforts, and what sunlight sneaks through the canopy showcases this in kind. We make an attempt not to look, but it's Rue who states the obvious. Oh boy, you're a sweaty one this morning. Eric grimaces at the playful Faye and wipes the sweat from his brow. I'm working, Rue. Yes, but so early? Is that actually enjoyable? The wood isn't going to spring legs and run away, at least not this kind. Eric shakes his head dismissively. This kind. Very funny. The ex-knight turns his gaze to me now. That line is made of bronze hair falling in his eyes, but that gaze remains firmly fixed upon me. He grunts deeply, and I'm smart enough to know that this isn't one of Rue's aforementioned good ones. I see you brought someone with you this time. Just a fellow wayward soul I picked up along the road. The toothy grin they give him is a hard contrast to the tired looks they're given in return. Rue, you can't just drag people who don't want to be here along. He had wanted to, even said as much. Okay, flirt time, flirt. I look at him, really look at him this time. I take stock of his broad frame, the obvious dedication to his physique, the multitude of scars from many a battle marking him. Not to mention how the light from the forest hits him just right. Eric is certainly a handsome man. If that isn't something I noticed before, I'm definitely noticing now. I'm glad I came. I let my gaze wander, albeit briefly. We have to allow ourselves little luxuries every now and again, right? Your shopping form is impressive, to say the least. This must have been far removed from what Eric was expecting. The way his eyes widen is anything to go by. He probably was not expecting any flirting at all. His demeanor seems to shift with a new kind of awareness as he stares back at me. He takes one step back and clears his throat, almost struggling to keep his composure. Perhaps it's just my imagination going wild, but Sir Eric's cheeks look to flush a shade darker. Is a former Knight Commander shy? I don't know what to say to that. Thanks, I guess? Clears his throat again, and I can't help but smile. I really did fluster him, it would appear. Sorry. If Drew brought you, you must be all right. I hope. I wouldn't mind seeing him like this again, now I'm bearing witness to it, both without the shirt and with the blush, but I'm not fussy on which I get to see first. Eric wipes away my sweat that gathers upon his tan skin with a tattered cloth before tossing it aside carelessly. Now, why exactly are you here poking about? There's no poking about, at least not yet. Their hand disappears under their cloak and they produce a bunch of bright yellow balloons. I came to give you this, Sunshine. Don't call me Sunshine. Oh, hush, you're getting a gift and I wasn't calling you Sunshine. You're a grumpy baby. How many times have I been over this? Don't call me a baby. There it is, the adoration he has for his nickname. Drew nods to themselves, pointedly ignoring his protest as they saunter past him to the front of the cabin. He sighs and turns to follow them, so I guess I'd better tag along too. There's a small but thriving garden that flourishes in the sorry, dry dirt that surrounds it, neatly kept and clearly tended to with love that I imagine comes from both Drew and Eric. I'm sure Eric isn't quite as open about it as they are, but he's gazing upon it with fondness in his eyes. Something about him strikes me as almost sentimental, especially if you look at the company he keeps and claims to suffer. There's an assortment of colors here, but the brightest is the yellow of the daffodils. Possibly their favorite? This is a beautiful garden. Drew's doing. I can't say I have the skills to care for plants, but they insisted. You've gotten better at it. They tell me you've been keeping them company too. Said you're not much of a talker, but you do try. Eric folds his arms and purses his lips. He looks a bit embarrassed by that revelation, but he looks at Drew with something that looks like fond annoyance. That sounds about right. Oh, so now the flowers are telling on me, huh? Everyone's a talker. They're fond of you, Eric, just like I am. I know. Drew really brings out his softer side, something I didn't think I'd see for myself just yet. It's amusing and humanizing, his cold reception to the kingdom and knight. I put a wedge between us, but I think I'm closer to seeing Eric's true face. Well, I'd offer to have you come inside, but it looks like shit in there. Not usually a host for company in my home. You mean you don't usually have people drop in on you without any notice? Didn't say that. Got plenty of people dropping in on me, just not at my cabin. He does. I remember one Raiden literally dropped on you. You looked ready to fling him like a skipping stone. Raiden? Drew was laughing loudly, rocking back and forth with their arms around their middle as if they're trying to keep their insides from falling out. That's right. The knight didn't get to see Eric and Raiden together. It was the ambassador and the nomad that got to see it. Because I was. Did you say Raiden? Would he happen to have white hair with scar on his face and a cocky shit-eating smile? That description should be on his wanted poster. Yeah, that sounds about right. That's the bastard. But you saw him at the castle on your patrols, right? So apparently that's commonplace. He's not very discreet about it, is he? Eric rolls his eyes and shakes his head like he's nursing a headache. If you already know, then no. The lad knows he won't get caught, so he enjoys showing off. He certainly made sure to do that when I first encountered him. Word of advice, get used to it unless you think of yourself as a skilled runner in armor. I'm just trying to do my job, and I don't think I'll be jumping off any balconies anytime soon. Hinting at how he got away in the first place. Okay, finish off my soda. Rue snorts. It can be fun. Don't give Ehab any ideas. They stick out their tongue, grinning behind a mischievous look as they busy themselves with flowers again, not a care in the world. So, checking out the conversation briefly. I have to say that I'm surprised about the company you keep. Is this Raiden the snake that pokes the bear? More than a few times, and I have no idea why he tries. Not like he can hold his liquor. You sound fond of him, though. Maybe just a little. Eric is as in character as ever, grunts in response. Nah. Kind of a pain in my ass? Not really, but in general, sure. I don't know what makes you look like a mother hen, but he flocks to me all the same. Too many people here stick their necks out and get into all kinds of trouble. He's been in that business for a while. I even had the honor of taking him in a few times, although only when he wanted to get caught. I said something about him. That he's only caught when he wants to be caught. That's significant. Indicates that he is very good at what he does. And actually there's a moment in one of the most recent chapters with the nomad where the nomad fully realizes exactly how skilled Raiden is. We weren't exactly cozy then. He shifts again, and it reminds me of the way he held himself when he was reminiscing about Masha. Glimpses of sentimentality that paint Eric in a softer light. He's gotten much better since then. Too good, maybe. I'm not proud of that, but I'm glad he keeps his head. Can't tell if the boy sidles up to me now because I have no authority and he's comfy, but he's not a bad one. Even if he enjoys annoying me. Even behind that gruff demeanor, I can tell he cares for the man. Maybe you're birds of a feather? I can't imagine an assassin keeping many friends, especially not knights, not even former ones. Birds of a feather? I don't kill people for a living if that's what you're saying. I'm saying it's kinship, Eric. Camaraderie, just the same with your fellows. I'm not going to pretend that you trust me as a knight of the order, just like Raiden didn't trust you then. You have my apologies for losing your station, but maybe it's that loss that opened the bridge between you two. All I hear of assassin life is that it's not a happy one. Misery loves company, and maybe Raiden saw fit to be the company to you. His lips stiffen. I fear I've been presumptuous, but it doesn't lash out. Rue tenses beside me, but offers no input. Then Eric huffs a laugh, something I certainly didn't expect with the air feeling this tense. You might be onto something, but he's still a stubborn fool. I've known of him for many years now. Maybe he did get sentimental. I mean, shit, me too, probably. I guess that's just how it is in this shithole of a kingdom. Nothing like bad luck to bring us all together. Better he visits me than others. He folds his arms across his chest and looks at Rue to find them looking right back at him. What? Nothing. You're just sweet, even if your words are clumsy. If you say so. Do they bother you much? The others from the palace aside from me. Used to, but they've been sleeping on their spine recently. I know they still keep an eye on me, but they don't bother taking it too far. You've been the only one as of late that questioned me. I can only offer a sheepish smile, but I'm not entirely shocked by that revelation. I have been taking things into my own hands. Indeed, and maybe they've already concluded that Eric wasn't who they were looking for a similar reason to what Raiden said. I just want to get a handle on the situation, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't curious. More curious than some, apparently. Could have fooled me. You seem to keep good company, all jokes aside. This place is nice, even if it screams private. Private suits me better, and it's the best I can do, but I'm glad it at least has its minor charms. That might be thanks to its owner. Others seem to think so. I don't see it, but I'll take the compliment. Well, I thought maybe the whole disgruntled drink tyranny would push people away. Yet here you both are. I like that. People can surprise you, sometimes in pleasant ways. Fair enough. Finally smiles, and that might not be meant for me specifically. It's a start. I might be on good terms with Eric yet. The scenery of the forest was starting to dim into a vermilion hue, and I vaguely remembered that there was an event mentioned. Time had passed so easily, and I was barely aware of it. Now would likely be a good time to retreat back to the palace. I'm going to have to excuse myself here and make my way back to the palace. Thank you for the diversion, you two. Making my way. Sorry, that is going to be a joke now for me. For people who watch Critical Role, it comes from that. It's just, it became a joke during their last campaign, and now it's just kind of stuck. Eric nods and Rube stands next to him, fingers and nails covered with dirt. Take care up there, and thanks for tagging along. I can already tell someone feels better. They nudge him in the ribs with a bony elbow, and Eric's demeanor is definitely visibly lighter. With a heavy sigh, his gaze falls to them, and is met with a knowing wink. He then returns back to me, albeit a touch exasperated. Got a hunch I'll see you again, so take care till then. Don't poke around too much. Sound advice. I'll try not to let my curiosity get the best of me. Both of them see me off, and the trail isn't terribly clear. The forests were old and trampled by many feet, but easily trace my steps and head back into the heart of Novus. I was hoping I have my meeting soon, and it won't be a readiness surprise. That's hoping for a bit much, you know. I need to grab something. There it is. Where is it? There it is. Yeah, I know it says there it is the whole time. Just had to dig through my purse. Okay. I didn't realize how much time I'd lost between the candid meeting with Lucian and running into Rue and then Eric. The sun is already setting over the horizon, and night slowly begins to wash over Novus. We get to see Libya in that lovely dress, I think. Yeah, I was very disappointed my ambassador didn't get to comment on it. I managed to slip back into the past before the paths to the center of town become too congested, and some comrades that pass me by are going in the opposite direction in their civilian clothes, bumping shoulders with loud guffaws. Apparently the Knights of Novus have a little concern over impressing others by looking at their outfits. Their garb is khaki. It might have something to do with the smell of liquor that radiates off of them, even in passing. Evidently the party started early for them. Someone else seems to think the same because I hear a poorly concealed splash. A little further down the corridor, I find my knight commander standing at the crossroads of the sleeping palace halls. She looks statuesque, as usual, but there's something about the expression she wears that looks contemplative. The again nods in my direction as I approach. Still on duty for the evening, Knight Commander? I am not. She says while still fully clad in her signature armor. Truly? I could say the same for you. I gave you admittance for a day of leisure, and yet you're just as armed. You got me there. I guess it's a comfort of sorts. Livia smirked at that, likely inclined to agree with me. Good, since I'd rather her not know I suffered the elements in this tin can for preventative measures. I do plan to attend you for the event, though. It seems like it might be entertaining. Are you thinking of going? I was invited to go, yes. You were? As just a civilian? For fun? She turns to me with a scrutinizing look. I said it in a way that I think easily implied that Livia doesn't have fun. Mood. As a civilian, yes. As for the fun aspect, we'll see. I don't normally take part in such engagements, but it was at the behest of the Grand Archmage. Ah, that sounds like Lady Masha. I apologize for my questions. I only meant that I hope you take some time for yourself now and then. She may be of the same mind. But just as you say, she insists I go out and mingle. With who, I don't know. Why not? I'm certain people wouldn't mind speaking with the famed Knight Commander of Basile. After all, you're the one spearheading the protection of our kingdom. Perhaps. The Knight Commander is usually curt and not one for dragging on conversation. But there's something amiss. Somehow she seems smaller, but imposing aura reduced for reasons I can't quite place. Her gaze is fixed on the other hallway ahead of us. I wonder if she's uncertain about the invitation. You could always decline if you don't feel up to the task. I'm sure she'd understand. I have already accepted, therefore I will go. She's definitely uncertain. Does she have an obligation to Marshall, or does she maybe make her uncomfortable? Does spending time with her perturb you? Those sharp eyes find mine again and hold me in place. You asked a lot of questions, personal ones I might add. I didn't mean to overstep. You just seem a little tense. Distracted, maybe. I just wanted to check. You're either perceptive or nosy. Time will tell. However, it can't be both. The lady sighs and rights herself again so that she stands taller. I admit I'm a little out of sorts. Lady Masha doesn't bother me, but it is my duty to escort her, whether that be for leisure or meetings of political importance. Social functions are not my forte. They're shit, in all honesty, and I don't want to dress for the occasion. Ah, the truth comes out. She doesn't want to change out her armor. I see now. Livia has been toying with the idea of that she should change for the gathering. Something tells me she's probably been standing here for a while, stewing over it. So you can just excuse yourself, offer to be a third wheel, or offer to be your date. This is what I'm thinking. A thought crosses my mind, and it's bold. What if I were to propose that I take you out instead? I was already extended an invitation. I know, but I mean, what if you told Lady Marsha that I had asked to take you out instead? Clearly she's confused because she looks concerned and struggling to make sense of what I'm saying. I'm saying, what if I personally asked to take you out for the evening, just us two? To what end? I shrug my armor rather noisily, listening to the clink echo in the empty halls, as I smile sweetly at my superior officer. Just for a pleasant diversion, to let know that a hard-working woman deserves to relax and some reprieve from her duties, even just for a short time. There's that hard look I'm used to, but it's unsteady. My words clearly as disarming to her as they were to me the second they fell from my lips. That's not necessary. I appreciate that, however. Maybe another time? She averts her eyes for a moment, looking distracted as she previously was, but this time for a different reason. A subtle hint of pink warms her pale skin. The halls are dark, and maybe I'm misjudging it, but I'm almost certain I made the harbinger blush. I wonder how many have done the same, doubting that any have at all. Well... If you think about it, the ambassador also made her blush earlier that day. It takes effort not to look somewhat smug when I smile at her. I do hope the night treats you well, my commander. She nods stiffly in my direction and keeps her focus still. I hope I didn't make her too uncomfortable, but seeing her like this is endearing. I decide not to overstay my welcome and leave her to her decision-making. It's her time I make myself presentable, too. I regret having to make much show for me again, but I think you'll be glad I came out unscathed after my outing. I'd rather not be stuck inside a sweaty tin at the event. Novus Town Square positively glows in the veil of night. I'm a little surprised that it's brimming with life like it is, considering how tense yesterday was. But maybe this was just the thing everyone needs, a good distraction. There's a myriad of stalls that line the streets, merchants sparking offers of rare and exotic meats, glowing silk that flows like water, overly powdered men and women playfully spritzing each other with heady fragrances. It's a different look than the one I'm used to for Novus. The place is finally feeling more lively and hospitable, like somewhere that could be home. I try to spot the main point of interest, but this place is bustling. All I can see are the bright garbs of Novian citizens crowding the place, and I decided it's good that I didn't keep my armor on. Although, in hindsight, it would have been handy to push through the crowds. Alas, I have to step away and situate myself against the wall where few people stand. Even if I can't partake in the festivities, it's a breath of fresh air to people watch. A rather loud couple stumbles through the mass of bodies, reminding me of the drunken people I saw at the palace. They weep back and forth, laughing obnoxiously, and then I watch as they run square into a muscular woman who glares daggers at them. They shrink under her gaze, and I quickly realize that the woman is Livia. Ah, yes. Ah, isn't that beautiful? Livia's nose crinkles in annoyance at the two, who quickly scurry off. Smirk. I'm surprised at how lovely she looks out of all that dark armor. But maybe surprise is the word I'm looking for. Livia is obviously beautiful, and maybe it's the lack of fear I feel that makes you feel differently. She looks around and eventually sees me and crosses away. I wave to her and she shrieks. She looks lost again somehow, still clutching the sword she never seems to go without like a lifeline. I've never seen her look so vulnerable, and I can feel myself about to walk up and approach her. But before that, someone has a mind to do the same, stepping next to her and pulling her gaze away. Oh, I know who that is that's talking to her. Making connections here still. Even though I've played this game how many times? She momentarily looks shocked as they settle at her side, their mouth moving with words I can't hear. I hope she at least tries to enjoy their company. Knight Kabir! A musical voice calls out to me, and I see the Grand Archmage striding elegantly between the massive bodies. She laughs as she approaches, radiant in her glittering gown. I'm surprised I was able to find you among all the gestures around her. This. I laugh. Her energy is infectious. I'm impressed you did. You look like you've been having fun. I also just saw Livia. Oh yes, I finally managed to weasel her out of the path and convince her to go without the armor. 2 feats I'm rather proud of. Have you seen much of the sights yet? Not yet. I just got here. It's a little crowded. Do you have any suggestions? Her eyes sparkle, and I can tell that Maja enjoys this. Indeed I do. I'm particularly fond of the confection stand. They have wonderful pastries that are both decadent and light on the palate. Their presentation is immaculate. Typically, most places will try to romance you with the allure of foreign ingredients, but this place, she says dreamily, positively wonderful. They are well versed with their craft. I cannot recommend it enough. I take it you're fond of desserts, then? Did I make it glaringly obvious? I love making them in my leisure time, introducing new ingredients, improving old recipes, changing the presentation. In fact, she pauses as the words catch in her throat, and I see some of that glee wither. I used to share my creations with someone, is all. A tester, if you will. Sometimes I may have been a little overzealous in my efforts, though. Eric. She's talking about Eric. I try to be a little more conscious of the servings I make, but alas, it still makes me a little excitable. I clock immediately that the person she's referring to is none other than Eric. The way she deflated and tried to pick herself up reminds me much of how he was when talking to her yesterday. Oh, they both still have feelings. It's been indicated that it's possible to help Maja and Eric get back together, even if you don't romance them. I assume that will happen in the chapters to come. Of course, the most recent chapter is when you actually acknowledge your feelings for whoever your romance option is. And then I assume the coming chapters will provide opportunities for the various people to get them together again. Because it's clear they do still love each other. Which makes it feel weird to try to romance just one and not the other. It feels like they belong together, so it wouldn't be right to come between them. Unless it's literally between them. That I wouldn't mind. But yeah, and it's the same with Lucian and Raiden. They seem to be a package deal, and it just feels wrong to not enjoy that full package deal. But I know there are some people who just are not into polyamory, and that's fine. But for me, pretty much any polyamorous options, it feels like they should remain polyamorous. I mean, I will do the routes with them individually just to see the differences. But me personally, it feels like I should romance them together. Maybe it's the part of me that is a bit of a romantic. Anyway, continuing on. Memories both fond and painful to remember. Definitely. Well, if you find that you've made too much, I would love to try your creations. With as much enthusiasm as you've shown, I'm sure they're truly delicious. That is definitely something that I've noticed. When you put love into whatever you're creating, whether it's baking, cooking, writing, sewing, whatever. When you put love and affection into it, it just makes it that much better because there is honest dedication and devotion to it. Oh, that's very flattering. They're modest, but I do love it. I'm not sure if that was exactly modest, my lady. Again, Masha lights up with laughter, and she's glowing. And another repeat CG, so to speak. I think we even get this with the nomad. But gosh, she's gorgeous when she laughs, isn't she? And I love the way the golden jewelry looks against her skin. I love the contrast. Personally, I'm not a fan of gold jewelry for myself. I prefer silver, but that's me. I suppose the pride in my craft has shown through. Confidence is good to have, as is passion, especially in something you love. Confidence and passion, you say? That's a romantic way to put it. Is it? She smiles warmly and nods. It sounds a bit like you yourself use this approach to your hobbies. If you're just as passionate about your duties as a knight, I'm sure you'll be on the lips of bards soon enough. That doesn't sound so terrible, to be honest. I do wonder what kind of songs that would inspire. So, these choices, they're all pretty good. That middle one, actually, it sounds a bit like Batman. The Dark Knight, so to speak. But, of course, as I said, we're going to be flirting every chance we get, so, of course, we have to take this one. It's not as they think I could be one to inspire tales, so if I were to have one... Masha waits patiently below, glowing lights, creating a backlight that looks like a corona around her. The energy and scenery agree with her, and Masha is... is beautiful. I think I have an idea now. If I were to have a story of my own, I would hope it's one that tells of the adventures of a person seeking to find their place, bringing goodwill and fortune to others and hope back to the land. And perhaps a mention of a wonderfully talented and utterly lovely Grand Archmage that helped them along the way. I can't help the smile that slips onto my face when I see Masha tilt her head curiously. A talented and utterly lovely Grand Archmage? Whoever could you be speaking of, Ehab? It might be too bold to call her by name, but the news in question would certainly make it a much more moving tale. Her accomplishments, I can't talk freely, are all worthy, as is her beauty. You remind me of her. She laughs, positively giddy at my coyness. The sound is enchanting. My, you are a romantic. I'm certain that this woman will find your words very charming. I place a hand over my breast and give her a humble bow. I will do my best to remember that. A swath of people pass us by from the direction of where Olivia stands, and Masha watches them closely. They don't stop to speak with the Knight Commander, but I can see that the individual that approached her earlier is still there. She looks fine from here, albeit still a touch awkward, but Masha seems to think otherwise. She visibly tenses, eyes sharp like a hawk, and that gentle demeanor shifts into something that makes you think she's feeling a little protective. Does Masha recognize the person talking with Olivia? Olivia might be out of her element and raring to leave, but she's hardly defenseless. Masha still looks like she could bore holes into the back of her companion, however. Is something the matter? Her smile is apologetic as she shakes her head and curtsies. Forgive me, I appreciate your candor, but I'm going to have to leave you now. I invited Olivia out for the evening, and I don't want to abandon her for long. I hope you understand. Of course, my lady, thank you for your time, and enjoy the rest of your night. The same of you, Knight Kadir. She hikes up the skirts of her dress and wastes no time making her way towards Olivia, deftly dodging others in the sea of bodies. I hope there's no trouble to be had, but with both the Knight Commander and Masha at their heels, I doubt it possible. I figured this might be a good enough time to find the spell Masha had mentioned earlier. It's still difficult to maneuver through the crowds, but I can smell rich cinnamon and cream in the air. The fragrance leaves an aromatic trail that leads me to a bustling and colorful stand. Just as Maja had mentioned, it's outfitted with some of the most creative and colorful desserts I have ever seen. There's a small purple cake with a crown of delicate flowers adorning it, then a golden pudding that has what looks to be caramelized sugar atop it. Next to those is a fluffy-looking biscuit that looks like it could very well bounce away. I can already feel my mouth watering just looking at the banquet of sweets. Breakfast has its share of delectables, but nothing quite so artistic. So once I hear the price of one of them from one of the merchants, my coin purse suddenly feels light. Go for the fluffy one. The what now? I look around but can't spot the source of her voice. The patrons next to me certainly pay no mind, too busy with their hands stuffed into their corn pouches. Hello? Up here. Perfectly nestled in a crook of the stone wall just above the stall sits Rue. They wave with a wide grin, and the mentioned fluffy treat is suddenly in their hands, and as though appearing out of thin air. Yep, we saw them last at the ambassador as well. They barely managed to catch their last bite before stuffing it in their mouth. That was close. I don't want to have to wait for someone to get me another. I separate myself from the crowd and move over to them, spying more than a few crumbs at the bottom of the wall. Have you just rolled your way up there to eat sweets? They nod, absolutely beside themselves. The image reminds me of a content cat. Some of the best sweets only pass through town when the festival goes on. I need to eat as many as I can before they're all gone. As many as you can? Gods above, Rue. How many of these did you purchase? Price of those are no small sum. Rue shakes her head, licking off the remnants of the confectionery off their fingers and patting the rest away. I'm sure they are. Humans must put a pretty price on such pretty desserts. Raiden brought them to me. Gave me a whole handful. Raiden? He's here? Yes, did you not see him? He's right there. They point in the direction of an opposing stall, and as soon as I turn to look, I'm greeted with that same signature grin he left me with the night before. He does what I can only describe as swagger up to me. He doesn't don the same mothers as he did before. He looks less armed, too, but I know for a fact that isn't true. At all. No assassin worth their guild would be unarmed at any time. Finally get a glimpse of Raiden. In cities. Well, his version of cities. Instead, he wears a tunic with a plunging neckline that reveals another long scar across his chest, a thin leather cord donning what looks like the tiny teeth of some beast I don't recognize hanging around his neck. That shameless glimpse of his chest reminds me of someone else I've been friends with. Hey, stranger, ready for our little date? Raiden cards a hand through his white locks, cocking a brow at me and chuckling deeply. What? Did you think I'd forget? I just didn't think you'd make me wait the whole bloody day for it. I tried to get here sooner, but I had some important business to attend to. Business with a nomad. You know, assassinate stuff. Finger guns. His fingers wingle at me, but the look I give him in return conveys my lack of giving a shit. I love it. That's what you wanted to talk about, right? Lucy told me, so don't be angry. Just doing as I'm asked. You know, that's probably something you shouldn't readily say to my face. I am still a knight at the palace. Is that why a knight of the palace is meeting with an assassin to do their own private investigation? Doesn't seem very knightly. The insufferable man put his finger to his lips and looks up, like he's seriously considering the integrity of my compliment. I want so badly to retort, but I keep my mouth shut because, well, he has a point. Still, smartass. Yes, he is, and that's why he annoys some people. I just find it amusing. Yeah, I get it. So, what exactly are we having this meeting? Is this somewhere shady you're going to leave me where we're going to chat? Someone's in a rush. You call me by name here, and you don't give me yours? I'd like to at least know the name of my companion, if you don't already know. Do I? I can tell he wants me to play along, the devilish smirk on his face goading me into playing his game. Ehab. Oh yeah, that does sound familiar. Pleasure to meet you for the first time, Ehab. Uh-huh. Yes, you too, Raiden. He snorts. You really are a step, huh? You should ease up. After all, you get to have those handsome faces company. I'll be at ease when we move somewhere where we can discuss this properly. That's why I'm here. What better place to speak about naughty secret things than in a crowd of people all drunk and high on celebration? They won't hear or remember anything, and if they do, we can just pretend we're role-playing. The grin he makes is wide and toothy and unimaginably smug. I wither under his impish gaze, not because of his juvenile suggestion, but for the utter exhaustion I feel. Right. Raiden might be a headache right now, but what he says is very clever, so I'm loath to think it. Our conversation will be lost in the crowd, and prying eyes and ears will have a hard time pinning us down. That's actually a good idea, I suppose. Thank you. Came up with it myself. I don't know what I expected of Raiden when we finally got to meet. He's incredibly cheeky and smug, with an edge of unfathomable, almost coyness, all rolled up into one cocky man. It's hard to tell if he's taking me seriously when he acts this way, but part of me thinks he must be, or he wouldn't even be here. Although past that, I could see what Lucian meant when they talked about him. They said that he's the best of his guild, so his primary tool must be disarming people with his demeanor. I don't think it's entirely an act, but he must act a fool to make his prey into fools, which is a deadly miscalculation. He shrugs his way deeper into the crowd, telling me to follow with a jerk of his chin. Shall we? Lead the way. It's getting late, but the masses of people have yet to calm or disperse. If anything, the sound of Rocket's laughter has gotten louder, the smell of spilled spirits even more pungent. I have some difficulty navigating around the people, but Raiden makes it look so easy, gliding around them like a serpent. I see where he gets his moniker now. He's only a few paces in front of me before I hear him ask me a question, needing to not make it look too obvious that he's addressing me. So what's the knight looking to learn about a den of killers? Trying to find out more about who the assassin could be, or if multiple individuals were involved. Sounds an awful lot like you're trying to take matters into your own hands. The brand new Vitruvian knight playing the investigator? I've heard that before. Trust me. I just want answers, and I swear not to bother you any more than I must. Raiden starts to laugh while casting the crowd a glance. He looks at me briefly, his eyes crinkling at the corners. You really are in a hurry, so what makes you think asking me is going to help? Maybe the fact that you're an assassin and your acquaintance at the pounce vouch for your skills? They insisted you're the best. Oh, did they now? He had been exhibiting nothing but cool and easy confidence up until now. When he looks away from me, I think I see his cheeks darken, his voice pitched a little higher. Oh. Does Lucian make Raiden shy? If so, I would love to see them fluster him. They did, and they don't seem like the kind to tell people up unless they don't truly think so. They aren't, but you don't need to flatter me to get answers. Just tell me then, were any of your other comrades involved, or does the guild have designs on the crown? Comrades? That's cute. I wouldn't exactly call people who would stab me in the back if they got a pretty offer to do so a comrade. Okay, the other bastards in your company then. That's more like it. Not often you have someone who insists on having others be called bastards. Normally it's the other way around. There's a woman waiting between the stalls to hand out small pastries. She looks frantic as she jogs back and forth, and Raiden has his eyes on the gold-tipped plate in his clutches. He swipes over the pastries before she knows it's taking a messy bite. But to answer your question, no. No, does no one have marks on the king and queen? Can't say I've heard anything of the sort. Are you going to answer me seriously? I promise you, I am. Says it so sweetly, biting into his golden goods once more before looking back to me with eyes that glitter with mischief. I'm just having a bit of fun after a long day. By wasting my time? Am I though? I did come out to see you, and I am answering your questions. I was told you actually care about your home, and I endeavored to protect it. Just seems like you want to have your bit of fun and nothing else. Raiden stops abruptly, and I find myself colliding with his back, curse falling from my lips that makes him turn around, a very serious look on his face. I think for a moment that he's angry because the look he gives me is far from the smirks and playful winks I'm becoming used to from him. His dark eyes bore into me for a beat before quickly flicking to something behind me. I turn to see what he's staring at, dread settling heavy like a rock in my gut. Someone caught wind of our conversation? That feeling of fight or flight sinks in, and then laughter. Turn back to Raiden, the culprit, and find him thoroughly amused with himself, chuckling at his little game of distraction and deception. I just need you to lighten up. You're lucky I don't spear you on the end of my weapon right now. He laughs again, pleased with the sound of his own voice, I assume. All right, I'll tell you the real secret. It's already dangerous that I'm here, but you're right. I do want to protect my home, so listen close. I'm surprised by his earnestness, but I still stand alert. Reading has been nothing but games and cryptic answers so far, but I so desperately want to learn something. He ushers forward while we part through the crowd. Like a rock in a stream, they move around us as we come to a standstill, and Raiden moves in close to whisper in my ear. Brace myself to hear what I suffered through to get, finally. I don't know why he's displaying such caution all of a sudden, but I'm eager to hear what he has to say. His eyes fly wide, and I'm about ready to scream as he's toying with me again. This time he seems genuine. He spotted something important. He pulls back, offering me an apologetic half-smile, but somehow seems genuine. I'm truly sorry it's come to this, he has, but very important matters call to me. I'm sure you understand. My mouth hangs ajar, and I fix him with an angry look. You would leave now, right as you're about to impart with important knowledge? Raiden winks, trying so painfully to be charming. I have no excuse. Duty calls. Don't want to be the reason I get my lovely head put on a spike now, do you? He offers me a faux salute and takes off into the crowd. I quickly lose sight of him, left standing where he abandons me. It figures that someone as dramatic as him would take off in the same fashion as he did the night before, leaving me in the shifting mass of people feeling like I've learned nothing but I've gained something. As much as Raiden loves to be cryptic, I still want to believe Lucy. That look that comes over him at the utterance of the name is a dead giveaway. More than anything, he'd be willing to give himself. I'm sure there's a modicum of truth to what he says, that no one in the guild dares to dethrone the crown. It's just a gut feeling, but it's reassuring all the same. So, watching him leave still leaves me with an important question. Who exactly wants to see the kingdom on his knees, if not the assassin? It's a troublesome thought, and I'm thankful for the chorus of noise that surrounds me, in drowning it out. I've received more answers than I thought to get, though it felt like pulling teeth, and I know now this is not as simple as it seems. What truly lies at the bottom that seeks to topple those at the top. I can only do what I can from here to find out. End of chapter 1. Whew. Okay, yeah, that's it for Night chapter 1. Next week is Nomad chapter 1. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, yeah. Super. I keep doing that. Alright. So, see you next week. So, yeah. Didn't get to flirt with Raiden, but that's understandable. I like how it varies how much you can take, depending on what route you pick. Like, the Nomad hasn't even met Livia yet. Just saw her from a distance. But they'll get their chance. But, yeah, so, Night Chapter 1, Night Prologue should go up this Saturday. Nomad Prologue Saturday after that. And then we'll cycle through. I haven't decided yet whether I'm going to finish the Errant Kingdom stuff and then do the Women That Comes revamp. Probably finish Errant Kingdom because I don't like stopping in the middle of something. Who knows, maybe by the time I get to the end of the Nomad route, the rest of the Errant Kingdom stuff will be available. But we'll see how that goes. For the moment, I am going to go ahead and sign off because I'm tired. next week, and thank you for joining me.